Welcome back to News and Views, right here on your home of humanitarian journalism, Salam Media. We're about 10 minutes before the top of the hour 9. I'm your host, Salalo Makwidiri, and we're going to be turning our attention to, I think, a catastrophic humanitarian crisis that's currently unfolding in Southern Africa, where over 27 million lives have been severely impacted by one of the worst droughts in a century, as highlighted by the World Food Program. 21 million children are currently facing malnutrition, and nations like Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe have declared states of national disaster. The repercussions of this historic drought, intensified by climate change and what they call the El Nino phenomenon, threaten not only food security but also the livelihoods of millions dependent on agriculture. And to help us delve deeper into the environmental implications and to also explore potential solutions, I'm joined by Khalid Mathers. He's an environmentalist and sustainability consultant. Khalid has a rich background in climate change activism and works on integrating climate considerations across various sectors. Khalid, thank you so much for joining us on Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Assalamu alaikum. No, it's no problem. Thank you for having me.
There we go. I think we can just start off by just a brief overview of this current crisis. If you can just provide us from your perspective, the current drought situation in Southern Africa, and what are some of the most alarming aspects of this crisis from an environmental standpoint?
Okay, let's. It is one of the most catastrophic of our time because, you know, we're living in the parallel world where we have the conveniences and comforts that you and I experience with the brutality of this environmental phenomena affecting people in the most vulnerable places. And it's not localized to South Africa. Actually, in America, currently, there is a parallel drought. But as you mentioned, it's related to the El Nino. So this is a seasonal event where a circulation known as the Walker circulation in the Southern Ocean um, piles warm water near the equator and then breaks down how the wind flows and then how weather is translated from one region to another. And it's parallel. The La Nina is actually responsible for intense rainfall and then anchovies coming to the surface because of upwellings that cause the rainfall of the coast of South America. But more specifically to this one, it's devastating because it's actually an extended drought. So what had been happening in northern Central Africa, Zambia, Angola, these countries, they have been experiencing this drought since February, and millions of hectares of crops have failed. Zambia has been hit particularly hard, but additionally, livestock. So, livestock and agriculture, crops, are the backbone of many of these countries. And because of this drought and the El Nino event, which has amplified it, it's caused a humanitarian crisis, as you mentioned. So I think those are the most alarming facts that there's a food security problem caused by the El Nino amplifying a low rainfall summer. So we expected to have summer rainfalls, but because of the El Nino, that's been dampened. So we're facing a humanitarian crisis where, and that's just the animals that and the crops we are understanding and cater for. Who knows what's happening out in the wilderness where ecosystems potentially are collapsing.
Mm, mm, mm. I want to touch a bit on. I think you mentioned it a bit. The agricultural, I think you can call it vulnerability, that has been brought on by this drought. Millions of Southern Africans rely on rain-fed agriculture here in South Africa. Know that more than many. Are there any kind of strategies that can be implemented to make agricultural practices more resilient to extreme weather events like the drought that we're currently experiencing? Because climate change is now a lived reality. It's no longer something that is predicted to come in the next coming years. In fact, it's going to be getting even far more worse from here henceforth. So, is there a way to adapt how we are doing things while we're still trying to, I don't know, mitigate the effects of climate change? To live with it, if I can put it that way?
That's my brother. That's a very like layered question. There's the immediate effects of what kind of agriculture we can plant in response, because potentially some of the agriculture we're relying on now is rain intensive. But then there's also the economic systems we have to look at. But before we get to that. That perspective. What about our social constructs? If we're saying meat is limiting, it is meat, which is a result of a product of the livestock, is actually being decimated. Do we relook at our meat consumption? There's even a recent study which is unrelated to this drought, but I read recently that they found that from 2002 or something to 2020, a large portion of the fossil fuels was because of a certain type of methane isotope, which is related to food wastage, the decomposition of food, as well as the methane released by animals. So we're raising millions upon millions of kgs of meat, and our water systems cannot cope with it. And it's having a effect on the climate. It's like a cyclical effect. So we're releasing methane, which is a greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere. It's impacting these larger weather phenomena like the El Ninos. But lastly, just to break it down, what farmers today can do is plant more drought resilient crops, relook at their forecast, because it's going to, as you say, get more intense. So where we are planting heavy water intensive agriculture like avocados and mangoes, we need to really deconstruct if the land is being optimally used and where the benefits are navigating. And yeah, so there's multiple layers to that kind of a question. What can we do about in response to the climate change system? Because it is a product of many layers of people striving for convenience, comfort, and profits without worrying about the system. And now we experience broad systematic impacts.
Mm, mm. Let's touch a bit on the reactions of the governments of some of these southern African countries, South Africa included. As a climate change consultant, I'm sure you had some engagements to some level with government officials. What have you made one of the appreciation of the knowledge and the research that's being made regarding climate change, and number two, preparing for eventualities like this that I'm pretty sure have been forecasted for quite a long time?
Yeah, there's also multiple dimensions to that response, because governments uh, will need to declare states of emergencies in certain events or for certain regions, and that would free up liquid funds to respond to regions where there's food insecurity that's directly going to impact the growth of people and of children, especially because you get generations which are impacted. So your society becomes a little less ambitious, a little less, I don't want to say intelligent, but the capacities to strive towards greatness become limited amongst a whole generation because of the malnutrition and stunted growth. So governments need to rapidly intervene in that event. And when financial institutions where farmers actually are, what can I say, insured for drought, against drought. Financial institutions are playing this very delicate balancing game of how they can insure against risk and also take into account that the climate is going to just make this risk a lived reality. So they can't carry the burden anymore. So they're navigating farmers to adopt more water resilient crops, employ regenerative agricultural methods where the ground is not depleted of restorative organisms and nutrients, and also use less harsh farming practices so that the ground can store water for longer, and then microorganisms can live within a humus layer. It's a multi-pronged question, also with lots of different dimensions. But governments are actively intervening across the spectrum. So there's research and development on one side, you've got your disaster relief on the other side, you've got your engagement with the financial institutions to make sure that farmers have the ability to produce food, because yeah, that might become a scary thought in the future.
No, definitely. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, Khalid. I still had a few more questions to unpack, but I think as the situation unfolds, we'll be keeping in touch, you and I. But we're going to leave it here for now. Jazakallah so much.
Jazakallah. Thank you for having me, Salela.
There you have it. That was
Salam.
Khalid Mathers, who's sharing with us some insights and expertise on this very, very pressing issue, the issue of climate change. And as Southern Africa grapples with the effects thereof, it is vital for us to engage in discussions about climate resilience and sustainable practices, because it's only for the betterment of, you know, our generation and the ones that come after us to better understand this now no longer projected reality, but a lived reality. I think here in South Africa, I think you can tell by just how extreme weather phenomenons have become. Whether it's the extreme rain, the winds. I mean, we had snow in the middle of spring. Some parts of South Africa, in the KZN particularly, which is touted to be the warmest place to be during this time of the year. But just a few months ago, we had snow, and it was not just snow, few centimeters, was heavily snowing. So yeah, I think it's very, very important that we have this kind of situations, and we kind of um, build our knowledge and understanding of climate change so that we become climate resilient, because it's our reality now. It's no longer projected that in whatever year there'll be extreme weather conditions, and food and crops and whatever will be affected. Temperatures will start to rise, and there's going to be extreme weather conditions. We are now living that. We're experiencing it. The ocean levels are rising, and yeah, it's what our generation before living and trying to survive for a very, very long time. So yeah, I think to our listeners, you can engage with us on our various social media pages, and you can give us your thoughts. Our studio line is 0116800355, and our WhatsApp line is 061 766 0355, and we could chat about how the upcoming generations, or our generations, which are currently now starting to inherit the world, if I can put it that way, could work on becoming more climate resilient, and try and build sustainable practices which can carry the world forward. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.
Israel, a lot of people